few servers running in public cloud, but this was like moving entire data center from on-prem to public cloud. And we did consider a couple of options there. We're thinking of going co-location, or maybe can we set up our own data center where our head office was moving. And so we evaluated all those, and we thought at that time the cloud was the best options we had, considering many other things, like the the performance issues or the infrastructure upgrade challenges, the OS patching, those kind of things. So ultimately, we thought cloud is the best option.
Awesome, thank you. When migrating to the cloud, we find a lot of companies, don't know what they don't know. For a lot of them, this is a new approach. So, how did you approach learning about how to best maximize the benefits of your migration of your SAP workloads onto Google, and also some criteria that you use to select the right cloud provider for that project?
Right. Like I mentioned earlier, we leaned heavily on our partner community, and fortunately, SAP kind of brought in Google, introduced us to Google, and Google introduced us to Frank and his team at ManageCore. And really, I mean, we just wanted to make sure that we had the right teams involved. I mean, when I think back at this project, I think it really was kind of this dream team. And it had to be that because we didn't have the time to kind of peel back all the layers of the onion to really understand what was in front of us. And there might have been some beauty in that. But we certainly had to make a calculated risk, and we needed to partner with teams and people that had done it before and had a lot of confidence that we could achieve this huge endeavor in the time that we had with the budget that we had. So again, I don't want to understate what GCP Applied Technologies brought, because we certainly, had to bring kind of the institutional knowledge of what was required. But we really, it was so important that we engage and partner with teams that knew how to get this done and could convey that it was possible, that, we weren't putting the business at any undue risk as a result.
It sounds like a good advertising campaign, Robin. GCP Applied Technologies plus SAP plus Google plus ManageCore.
But that's what something on this level takes. When I have conversations with folks outside the business, in other IT communities, they really can't believe what was accomplished. And I think it was the secret sauce of all the folks that were involved to get it done that really made the difference.
Awesome. Frank, so is this a common response that you see? What are your learnings about, how to help customers maximize the benefits of migrating to the cloud?
Yeah, well, there's several factors obviously that go into that, right? Now in GCP Applied Technologies case, they had a very definitive hard deadline, right? So we really had to work our way back from that. And I completely agree with Robin's comment about it really is a team effort, right? Because even though ManageCore knows the cloud and has done several migrations to help customers get there, it really is about understanding the dependencies of the applications, what's going to change once the applications move to the cloud. In this case, RISE was also part of this solution, right? Not just SAP, but the entire data center, which had networking implications and things like that. So I think one of the very first pieces of this project we really started with was coming down to the table and saying, hey, what are all the requirements? Getting a complete inventory of what had to move, maybe the impact to not only the business, but end users, the systems themselves, and having that clear understanding. Because once you have a clear understanding of what the migration project entails, then it is just a process of saying, okay, how do we build out the project plan? What's the sequence of events? And once you kind of have that baked in, then it's a fairly straightforward project.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thanks, Frank. So, Robin, what's your take on how ManageCore? It's a fairly significant project, and you're talking about two large companies, SAP and Google Cloud. Seems like they were kind of the linchpin that kind of held everything together. What's your do you have any comments on that, Robin?
Yeah, when I think about, how we were able to get this done, I think, ManageCore was the right size organization for us. They were in a great location. I mean, honestly, we were able to kind of stay in lockstep to get the work done. And, I think really just their experience. I mean, I will say, I don't want to put words in Frank's mouth, but he was like, okay, if we structure it like this, if we work with Google, we can get this job done. And so I really left it. I kind of put a lot of faith in Frank and his team that they knew what was required to get it done, and they were able to deliver. Kishore, from your perspective, I know you were there day to day. What is your take?
Yeah, I definitely want to say here, like, I think we would not have done this without ManageCore support. When we engage with ManageCore, they help us out understanding the process, understanding the migration, what kind of phases we need to go through. So I definitely echo what Robin said. It was a great partnership.
Thank you, Kishore. So, I mean, as we speak, there are probably several thousands of customers that are evaluating RISE with SAP and Google Cloud. What are some of the challenges did you face, during the migration? Obviously, you've been a long-term SAP customer, you've been on premise. So, what are some of the challenges that you faced during migrating these workloads, and going into RISE, which, frankly, when you chose it, was a relatively new offering? Can you walk us through some of those challenges and maybe help other prospective customers that are looking at this program today?
Kishore, you want to start on this one and I'll add in?
Yeah, let me try this. Yeah, so like when we're migrating, so some of the workloads were migrating to Google Cloud, and of course SAP migrating to SAP Rise, and one of the main challenges, people always say, you don't know what you don't know. And that was the challenge, because it was SAP's new offering, so a lot of things were not known, and that is what we learned through SAP, through ManageCore, during the process. When we started, we even didn't know how long it's going to take a migration, how much time it will take for the downtime. So all those things we learned during the migration. Those are the challenges, basically managing the downtime, particularly for the production. And again, SAP has many of the processes defined, and those are unknowns. So we had to learn that, and through ManageCore, we were able to understand this process.
And I will say, like I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, we didn't want to just do a lift and shift, right? We wanted to maximize this opportunity. I mean, we knew the business had to sort of check out a little bit, right, to get this work done. I mean, we couldn't do a ton of new development or anything like that. So what I will say is that, Rise on SAP, or SAP on Rise, the Google Cloud, like this afforded us this opportunity to try to really maximize this opportunity. We improved security, we updated the database. We were able to, with help from Frank and his team, I mean, we completely upended our support structure, with that combination of SAP on Rise and ManageCore. So, I mean, where we are today is light years ahead of where we were. And again, I think it's because of the technology and partners that we chose as part of this project.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. So, Frank, maybe a follow-up to you, right? So, as a partner, what's your perspective on some of these migration challenges specific to RISE with SAP and Google Cloud? And how are you helping your customers solve for these challenges?
Yeah, well, I think Kishore said it best. You don't know what you don't know, right? Going into these projects. And what we have found is every migration project has its potholes, right? You're going to run into things that you didn't expect, or challenges along the way, whether it be with the timing, whether it be with a version of something that's not compatible, those sort of things. So I think what we always kind of start out telling our customers is it may feel rocky in the beginning because we're trying to sort through some of those details. But by mid-project, we will have sorted through them. We will have the answers. We will have the process. And in GCP Applied Technologies case, we had to pivot a couple of times, right? We thought we'd go down path A, and we realized that wasn't as clean as we had thought, and we had to choose path B. An important part of that, though, is having the team, not only your partner, but the customer themselves, being able to sit in a room, evaluate the issues, and come up with a decision quickly, right? Which I think this team collectively did very well because, again, they had a very short time frame. So when we ran into those situations, coming up with alternatives, and then here's the path, here's choice A and B, and how do we move forward? So I think that's critical in every one of these migrations that we've performed, including this one.
Thank you, Frank. So maybe perhaps this question for Robin and Kishore. What are some of the important attributes that you chose from a cloud provider perspective? Why did you, more directly, why did you choose Google Cloud to host your RISE with SAP workloads?
So we leaned heavily on SAP initially. We knew that, okay, SAP is at the core of our business, and we need to, move it out of the data center. So it was really important to protect that asset. So we definitely had a lot of conversations with SAP, looked at options, and they made a recommendation to look at Google. And that I know that a number of their workloads are run in Google, and so again, calculated risk, but a risk nonetheless that we had to take stock in. SAP and what they recommended. And then as we went through the process of understanding more about the offering, what it was going to take, the experience that you guys have had doing something similar, then we started to develop the confidence that, okay, this is a good fit for us. It'll meet our needs and help us kind of go to that next step. Kishore, anything to add on that?
No, I think you said it all. Initially SAP really supported very well.
Thank you. So Frank, maybe from your perspective, why do companies choose Google Cloud when they're migrating their RISE workloads? What are some of the criteria that they're using to sort of select Google for specifically for RISE with SAP?
Yeah, and we could spend a whole hour just on that topic alone, right? I think because there's a lot of benefits. I think it comes down to a couple though. The first in my mind would be the technology itself. I think the way Google has developed its cloud platform just lends itself to really be a great place to run SAP workloads, right? So whether they talk about the network, the live migration, a lot of the other features that Google provides. So from just a technology standpoint, I think they have some features and functions that the other providers just don't have. The second one then in my mind would be flexibility, right? From the pricing model to the way you can integrate different applications within Google to their open platform. So but in my mind, by far, they're the most open of the hyperscalers. So if you need connectivity or you have a hybrid kind of cloud environment, they make it far more easier than any of the other providers do. And then lastly, from a performance standpoint, I think every one of our customers that has moved their SAP workload specifically into Google Cloud, we always get the question, well, how is it going to perform when it gets there? Every customer we've moved has seen significant performance increases, right? And that's from report running, MRP, just day-to-day transactional performance. And I think that's a big one, right? So when people are thinking about where they run SAP, those are some of the critical things that they always ask, right? And I think Google has that sweet spot of all three of those criteria that really fits an SAP workload very well.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. It's a great segue because my next question was going to be around, specifically to Robin and Kishore about immediate improvements to your SAP workloads? You mentioned, Robin, already security and some of the database changes that you made. Were there other things that you specifically noticed when you went, with Rise on Google? Whether it's scale or other types of performance metrics.
Yeah, I know that we have experienced some performance improvements as well as our ability to respond to issues, and to quickly scale up to meet the needs of an application that may be under duress. But I'll let Kishore kind of expand on those points.
Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, also, so what I experienced so far is, so the monitoring definitely much improved monitoring, much improved alerts. The patching, vulnerabilities, anything which is discovered, those are taken care of much faster, much better, without really impacting the system downtime. So those are some of the things I would say. Those have definitely improved upon after, although it is just I think less than 6 months now, but we are already realizing those improvements. And the performance, as Robin mentioned, performance. We were definitely worried about that because we are going into cloud from the on-prem, where we have most of the users were in the same area, the same office, which was no more the case. So we had those worries, but we don't see that. We don't see them. In fact, we see much faster and reliable response time.
And you are also, evaluating other innovations going into the future, right? This is kind of a starting point for you to put SAP workloads on Google Cloud, and then there's a lot of other things that you're planning to do as well, correct?
Yeah. Again, a part of this was to prepare GCP Applied Technologies for the future. And certainly with Rise, that gives us access to S4. As I mentioned at the very beginning, there was a new agenda for the business, and that included, standard and efficient processes. How do we sort of reimagine how we do things to not only kind of work out the kinks internally, but to serve our customers better. And, I personally was convinced that S4 could play a role. And rather than kind of go back and re-engineer the past, we certainly wanted to look forward. An obvious next step for us would be to, do the work and put together the business case for S4 and to implement, an improved version of SAP for GCP Applied Technologies.
Awesome. Thank you. So, the other question that a lot of customers have as well is, how did moving to the cloud, your workloads, your ERP system to Google impact the broader team? Was there a learning curve for some of the other members of the broader team?
Yeah, so for as a part of this migration, as Robin mentioned earlier, we changed some of the support model. So yeah, there was definitely impact on some of the team there. And again, Managco being an experienced partner who is managing the Google Cloud loads, we definitely had that advantage. So there was some impact on some of the teams. We had to change the support model there for SAP basis as well as for the infrastructure.
So Frank, maybe you can add to it as well, more general point of view on organizations that are moving workloads, specifically SAP workloads to the cloud. What are some of the change management challenges that they face, and how do you Managco help with that transition?
Yeah, and I guess this is one of those cases where every customer is a little unique in how they want to approach it. We do see a fair number of customers, when they do go to the cloud, they're looking at a complete outsource model where they're literally looking, this is a transition period to really develop a different support structure than maybe they have in place today. One of the things that's maybe a little bit unique about Managco, that if a customer wants to have their own people continue to support this environment once it goes to the cloud, we'll work through that transition with them. So maybe we provide longer or greater amount of support early on and slowly like wean ourselves off of that support model if they want to take things over. Or there's some special division of work. When it comes politically to change management, however, in the purest sense, I mean, what we try to encourage is our customers use the exact same processes if they can, just translate those into the cloud, right? And in most cases, that's fairly possible. I think sometimes the cloud makes those more streamlined, gives them more flexibility. As an example, you can do things so quick in the cloud these days. If you have a monthly change management board meeting, that's probably not frequent enough, because if you decided tomorrow you wanted to stand up a new system, we could literally do it tomorrow. You don't want to wait that month period. But from a procedural standpoint, what we try to do is adapt as much as we can from what they're doing today and adapt that to the cloud environment itself.
So Robin, as we were speaking here, there are several thousands of customers that are evaluating RISE with SAP on Google Cloud. What would your advice be to those companies that are just starting this process, considering that you're already successfully live with the migration?
First and foremost, I think it's important to have, the support of your organization's leadership, right? And so that they understand, that this is, it's risky, but it's not, going to put the business in undue risk. I also think that you essentially need to do your homework. There are a lot of resources out there. Kishore can speak to this momentarily, but, we did take the time to make sure that we had engaged the right partners, that we had a clear understanding of what it would take, with various respective hyperscalers. We clearly understood the benefits of each, scenario with respect to moving our workloads to RISE or, directly to the hyperscaler. So, we had to consider all of the options so that we felt comfortable that we were making the right decision for our business. But again, there were a lot of resources for us, leverage your partners. There are companies that have done this and done it successfully, not so many, but, I think that I would say do your homework and ensure that your leadership is comfortable with what you intend to do. Kishore?
Yeah. So I'd like to add here, so definitely having the right partner is important, very critical, and also what I would like to add here is it's a complex undertaking, but it can be done. And also, like, the internal team needs to have a good understanding of the systems, the functionality, what they're using it, so we can really work with the partner. So when we are migrating, it gets migrated successfully. And testing is very important, so any part of the migration, at every level, whether you're doing the sandbox migration or the development, testing is very important. So if we have the resources, one can do those things, have the good understanding, this can be done.
Frank, give us your perspective. You're doing a lot of these migrations, RISE migrations to Google Cloud.
Yeah.
What would you advise companies that are at the very beginning of this process?
Yeah, well, I would say there's generally a nervousness whenever a company is deciding to move their SAP workload, right? It's the lifeblood of the company. And as we all know, you stop manufacturing, you stop selling, you stop doing a lot of things when SAP is down. So I understand the nervousness. So what we try to get, prospects and things to do is go talk to people who've been successful at doing this, right? I know a lot of SAP customers, if you've been around, you've either heard of horror stories or maybe you've lived through projects that didn't achieve the outcome you had planned. But I think the tools exist to be successful. There are companies out there that have been very successful in helping companies migrate to the cloud. So I think, talking to the right people, talking to a variety of folks, not just one person's word for it, but what other customers, other partners, speaking with Google directly, to build yourself that comfort level that moving your entire data center or even just SAP to the cloud is feasible. It's very obtainable and can be done with very little risk.
Thank you, Frank. I can't believe that we're at the end of our webinar already. Sounds like GCP Applied Technologies is already benefiting greatly from their migration. I'm really looking forward to hearing about all the future innovations that you're going to do on this platform. So Robin, Kishore, Frank, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and guiding us through some questions that others may have. I mean, it's invaluable for a lot of these customers that are at the very beginning of the rise with SAP and Google Cloud journey. So if you would like to discuss migrating your SAP workloads to Google Cloud, please reach out to us. You can go to cloud.google.com /solutions/SAP. We'd love to speak. We'd love to hear from you. Once again, thank you to everyone who tuned in. We hope you join us for our next Cloud on Air webinar. Thank you very much.